Hi there, you are listening to the Guitar Speak podcast. My name's Matt Wakeling and I'm really glad that you've joined us today. In fact, this is the very first episode of the Guitar Speak podcast, so it's a special day for us, so thanks for joining us. Guitar Speak, what are we about? We're about talking to amazing guitarists, luthiers, gear builders, pretty much anyone doing exciting and cool stuff with the instrument we love, the guitar. Now you can subscribe to us on the iTunes podcast feed. You can also listen to us on SoundCloud, Guitar Speak Podcast. You can look us up on the Facebooks, Guitar Speak Podcast. Or if you want to send us an email, you can send one to guitarspeakpodcast@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. Love to get your feedback on the show. Any requests or stuff you'd like us to cover. We'd be really keen to talk all about that. Now, for our very first episode, I'm really pleased to present part one of an interview with Sydney-based guitarist Michael Dolce. Now, Michael's a fantastic guitarist who I've known for a number of years. He's been, for well over 20 years, he's been playing loads of gigs around Sydney, loads of sessions. He appears on heaps of albums. And in recent years, we've seen him increasingly on our TV sets. So he did a little bit of playing on Australian Idol, and he's been the mainstay in the guitar seat of the show The Voice Australia. So whether you know it or not, you've probably heard Michael playing at some stage. We're going to talk about his early career, how he got established, how he went from school to a trade to full-time musician work. We're going to talk about how he scored gigs with high-profile acts like Andrew Roachford, Delta Goodrem, and what the process was to get the job as the guitarist on The Voice, and how that exactly works, how that gig works. In episode 2, we get more into, we talk about his technique, we talk about his masterclasses, which are really popular. They sell out all around Australia. We talk about his signature series guitar line from Charles Cillier Guitars, which is beautiful guitars. And we talk about his solo album, Everything Till Now. But before we start episode 1, part 1 of the Michael Dolce interview, I thought we'd listen to a bit of the man himself. Here's some excerpts from that album. Michael Dolce, welcome to the Guitar Speak podcast.
Thank you, Matt. Thanks for asking me, mate. Pleasure to be sitting here having a chat with you, mate.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. So, man, you've got such a varied career. I really want to dig into a bunch of stuff, but I'm interested to know, when did you start playing? When did this whole guitar thing kick off for you?
Well, at a young age, I sort of started playing when I was about 5, 6 years old. Mm-hmm. Influenced by my dad. Things progressed, and as I got a little bit older, I sort of started getting into the instrumentalists like Joe Satriani, Steve Vai, and all those type of guys. Then I sort of ventured into the neoclassical sort of players like Vinnie Moore and Malmsteen and Paul Gilbert and all those type of players, and I was right into that for a while. Yeah, probably in my mid-teens, 16 and 17 years old. At an earlier age, I was always influenced by instrumental music, by the Shadows. So that that sort of led me to all these sort of players, because I didn't really sort of get into, or I wasn't introduced to guys like Van Halen and Hendrix, or all those type of players. I sort of missed out on the Led Zeppelin thing as well. So I just didn't have it around me. So I sort of blent towards the Shadows, because that's what we had in our record collection, or that's what Dad had anyway. So as I was a young lad, I'd always put the record on and listen to the sounds of the Shadows, and obviously, like I said, it led me to the neoclassical and the Joe Satriani's, the instrumental thing, because I always loved that sound, and and then further on in as I was sort of doing that, I was sort of playing in covers bands and getting into that sort of playing. But it took a while for me to sort of shake the instrumental thing off, the neoclassical thing, and sort of get into sort of real playing, so to speak. When I say real playing, I mean like playing for bands and actually playing parts and being a little bit more disciplined, when it came to that sort of style. But it started at an early age and sort of still going, and sort of went backwards and recorded my album, instrumental thing, and that's where my heart is. It always has been, apart from everything else I do,
So it was so Hank Marvin was the first guitar hero you referred at your place.
Yeah, massive influence, to the point where, one of their album covers, they all had those black and white Burns guitars.
Yeah.
Not realising they had those Burns guitars. I just went out and bought, or my dad went out and bought a black and white electric guitar at the time, which I still have in front of me, which actually appears on my album cover.
Oh, yeah. Is that a Mustang?
Yeah, well, this is the thing. Not realising at the time it was, Fender was a good name. It's actually a Music Master.
Oh, okay, yep.
So it was like a student level guitar that Fender released back in the late 70s, sort of early 80s. And yeah, so my dad went out and bought it, and it was black and white, and I just fell in love with it straight away. So
awesome.
It still sort of sits in my rack.
Yep.
At the moment.
Nice.
I pick it up every now and then, but it never goes out. It stays at home. It's going to be one of those family trophies that you pass on,
Yeah, right. That's awesome. So that was a short scale guitar?
Yeah, they're a short scale.
Yeah.
And funny enough, after I finished recording my album, I spoke to Charles Cillier, who makes my guitars at the moment. I wanted him to make me a Strat body for it.
Okay.
I didn't realise it was a short scale neck, so when he went and sort of cut it all out and did the route for it, and I thought, why is the bridge so far up? I said, this doesn't look right. He says, yeah, it doesn't. He says, oh man, it's a short scale neck. And I thought, oh, you've got to be kidding me. So I scrapped that idea straight away, and I thought, no, it's meant to stay at home.
Yeah, right.
So that was it, because I wanted to sort of put the neck on there and and give it a fang around the traps, but yeah, it never eventuated. So back in the rack now.
Yeah, right. Cool. That's funny with first guitars. I loved Kiss. I wanted to be like Ace. So when I finally scraped up some bucks for an electric, the first thing I got was a Sakai. It was like an SG Strat Mutant, and it was vaguely.
I've seen it.
It had a really bad sunburst, so I thought it looked exactly like Ace's guitar, which years later I realised was a Les Paul Standard, and I'm like, man, that looked nothing like it. But oh man, that's cool.
It's funny. It's funny that you mentioned the Sakai's, because I actually, we're talking probably early '90s when I was. Do you remember? You remember when we were sort of doing the Hugh Wilson thing?
Yeah.
Back in the days. Well, we did a performance at I think it was at Edinburgh High at Menai there, and we did like their 10-year anniversary. And I remember a friend of mine having a Sakai, and I asked him if he wanted to give it away, because it was just sitting in his garage, had collected dust, and he goes, "Oh mate, you can have it."
Yeah.
But it was only purely for the purpose of smashing it on stage. That was the only opportunity I got to play a Sakai, and it was an SG copy too. I'll never forget it.
Yeah, right.
And I tell you what, it took a beating. It took me a long time to get the thing, just to get the neck off.
That's
couldn't
great,
smash
man.
it. Mate, they don't make them like they used to. As the saying goes. Yeah. Pretty funny. Yeah, yeah.
So that Hugh Wilson gig you're talking about,
Yeah,
was that one of your first sort of pro sort of gigs when you moved into
yeah.
that?
Well, the thing was, I at the time was, I finished my cabinet maker's trade, so I'm a cabinet maker by trade,
Okay.
and at the time I was doing like some cover stuff. As you probably remember, we used to do like TCs and all those. Remember those places out at Silverwater and that?
Silverwater,
Yeah,
for sure, played there.
yeah. We used to do sort of random sort of stuff there with Hugh and that, and Hugh always said to me, mate, because if I ever do anything, mate, you can, I'll make sure that we all sit together as a band, and I'll get you to play guitar. And I said, oh yeah, whatever, mate.
Yeah.
Whatever. And sure enough, as you know, Hugh went on Star Search and he ended up cleaning up the whole thing, So, and sure, and I'll never forget the day he rang me up at work. I was going back. It was just after the summer break, and I was just sitting in the factory, just going, oh man, this is not for me. It was like one of those 40-degree days. I was like, oh, God, give me a sign, anything, get me out of here, And mate, sure enough, I got this random phone call. It was from Hugh at the time, and I hadn't spoken to Hugh. I remember going to one of the Star Search shows, and we sort of, because he was so busy and sort of, he was in that world of the media at that point, I hadn't really spoken to him a lot, and he just sort of rang me up at the time, and he just said, Michael, are you interested in coming full time? We've got this, and this on, releasing the album.
Wow.
And as he was telling me that, I just looked over to my boss and I just said, I'm giving you my notice. And he sort of looked at me going, what are you saying? What the heck are you saying? So I explained it to him, and everybody knew who Hugh was at the time because Star Search was massive at that point.
Yeah. And
everyone knew who he was, and he was like, they were all for it, and they knew how much I sort of loved playing music and playing guitar. So they were like, just go, mate, go for it,
Wow, brilliant.
So, and that was that, and then we sort of did a couple of years of, doing a lot of supports and, a couple of TV things and the album, which was a massive learning curve for me.
Yeah. Under
the watchful eyes of Mark Moffat, he produced the album.
Oh, really? Wow.
I learned so much, off. It probably took us. I think it would have been about 4 months that this album sort of dragged out. So we were in the studio nearly every day, and then, we ended up sort of living out at Balmain with Hugh, myself, and Rich Adamson, and Derek, Hugh's brother. And we were just going to the studio every day and just, tracking stuff and guitars. And it was just the best experience. I learned about, really honing in on parts and stuff like that and how parts work. Yeah. I learned a lot being in that band, a real lot, And at the time, I was still, as I was moving into that world of playing with Hugh, I was still heavily into the neoclassical thing.
Okay, yeah.
So it was a hard transition, because none of the ideas I had, were working in his songs, as you can imagine.
Yeah. You just couldn't fit the harmonica minor over everything.
Well, a 16th note runs with the harmonic flavor. It doesn't really sort of go down too well when you're trying to play over, a Hugh Wilson song.
Yeah, a pop tune, yeah. I mean, great pop tunes, by the way. Even then, was a really great writer.
He was a great writer, man. And Hugh's doing great things in the States at the moment.
Yeah, he's super busy.
Yeah, he's super busy, and, we always sort of keep in touch via Facebook and stuff. So he's doing great stuff there, man. I'm forever grateful, that he gave me the opportunity, because that's what pretty much set me off,
Yeah, right.
It gave me a taste of that world.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh, this is exactly what I want to do, Even after it sort of calmed down after 2 years, it sort of just died to nothing, and I was left with no jobs, stuff like that, which sort of led me to, cleaning toilets basically and cleaning TABs, bedding stuff, and it was just offices and industrial area offices. I did that for about 6 months, 6-7 months. Just went to that, and I sort of, funny enough, I sort of enjoyed it. I know it sounds weird, but I mean, a job's a job. But there was that responsibility of not working for anyone, sort of working for yourself, and that also, funny enough, gave me a bit of a taste of, well, you know what, if I'm going to become a musician, I don't have to work for anybody, and I can and I could just, do my own thing and, play the gigs. I mean, that was the plan anyway, not knowing that it was going to eventuate to what I wanted. So almost conditioned myself at an early stage to sort of, condition and probably convince myself that there was no other way. This is where I had to go. So
that's
yeah.
the thing as a musician, as a working musician, you're a sole trader, aren't you? Really, you're getting your product out there. You need to get your gigs. You need to get your jobs. Same sort of thing as any small business.
Exactly right.
To do well, you've got to have that sort of mindset. Hey, that you're running a business.
Well, that's the thing, Matt. That's 90% of becoming the full-time musician. You got to learn to run your business like you would, if you were a cabinet maker or a tradesman of any sort. You really have to understand the business side of things, because a lot of the paperwork takes up a lot of time, and a lot of dealings with management and stuff like that takes up a lot of time, because you need to put that businessman hat on and go for it. Even back in the days, Matt, when we first met, even when Hugh Wilson's thing died out, I started sort of wanting to play with covers bands and stuff like that. So I'd just answer to every article that was in, Drum Media at the time, on the street.
So this is like sort of mid-90s, mid-late 90s?
Yeah, mid-90s. Yeah, when I had no work and just sort of struggling to get work, and hence the cleaning job and stuff like that.
Yeah, right.
So I just applied for a lot of the guitarist wanted ads.
Okay.
In Drum Media and stuff, and I was going to probably about 5-6 auditions a week, and just to get myself back in there and just playing with people. And my mentality was at the time, if I play with these people and they like what they hear, then they might remember me for the future. And even if I don't need the gig, if they don't get me for the gig, and and it was a great learning experience, going for auditions, because for me, even going for auditions and then playing the covers gig, and I'd always had that thing at the back of my head. I'm just preparing myself for the profile gig. This is all I'm doing. It's just all preparation. Do the gig as if I'm doing a profile gig. Go for the auditions as if I'm going for an audition for a profile gig. Be put on the spot, whatever it took. So to get to that point, I would, bring the people up. They would say, "Yeah, come in. Here are the songs. Learn these songs. Come in." I'd over prepare myself. I'd learn the songs, and I'd learn them in different keys. Excuse me, learn them in different keys. I'd just over prepared, like just ridiculously over prepared, but prepared for any scenario. Make sure that I didn't have any stone unturned. So I'd do that, and like 9 times out of 10, I'd get the gig. Then it sort of got to the point where I was sort of overflowing with people sort of saying, "Well, you've joined the band." Then all of a sudden, I had all these bands that I was supposed to be in, and everything was crossing over, and I was just like, "Oh no, this is not good." And then I'd sort of keep about 3 or 4 of them, and then just tell the other guys, look, if you ever need me. And everyone was cool about it, and that's exactly how it worked, because down the track, that's exactly what happened. Guys were calling me just to fill in, and that's how I sort of established myself. I never went to gigs or tried to sort of, ask people for gigs or anything like that. I sort of started like that, and then eventuated in the music store at Lombardo Music, and I was there for 4 years, and where I got my first teaching opportunity. I'm not qualified. I'm not formally trained in music. I'm just self-taught. So to get a teaching job, as you would know, it requires some sort of formal training or experience, and I had neither of those. So Ross Lombardo was, kind enough to offer me that opportunity, because he'd hear me play in the shop and he'd say, "Look, Michael, you want to teach?" And I thought, man, this is great. So, which led me to doing that, and then he'd give me a reference, and then I ended up getting other teaching jobs.
Yeah, right.
And it just cascaded from there. So everything was sort of, going according to plan, so to speak, for me.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember. I think it's when we probably first met, probably late 90s, I guess, and
yeah.
And you're good enough to give me a couple of sub gigs for you. I think I remember you were juggling lots of gigs, and
Yeah.
Around that time. Was that when the Delta gig popped up, or
The,
were you doing
the
some other
Delta
stuff
gig,
before then?
okay, in mid '90s, I was still sort of doing like the covers thing and
Yeah.
doing a lot of duo stuff at the time. And then later, sort of late '90s,
Mm-hmm.
I ended up getting in Big Radio Dynamite, as you would know.
Yeah. Hey, Roland.
And yeah, go ahead, Roland. Thanks for the opportunity, mate. That was an excellent opportunity too, because even before I joined Big Radio Dynamite, I was doing the duo thing with a guy called Phil Davidson.
Oh, yeah, I know Phil, yeah.
He's a legend.
He's
an
great.
absolute legend.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he gave me that opportunity. Once again, he had a friend that was doing the duo who ended up going to Canada, and I ended up getting the gig through. It was something to do with Dieter, I think, because at the time I ended up taking like about a stint of lessons with Dieter Kleeman in early '90s, actually, in the early '90s,
Yeah.
and then I think he sort of remembered me from those lessons, and then this guy sort of was good friends with Dieter and so forth. Anyhow, that story goes on, but I ended up going to Phil's. I'll never forget that too, going up to his place and sort of auditioning and that, and we had a bit of a chat. And we sort of clicked it straight away, and I did that duo for probably about 4 years straight, and I learnt so much, especially with BVs and learning to sing backing vocals. It was just great with Phil. I really enjoyed that gig, and then that sort of fizzled out, and then which led me to the Big Radio Dynamite thing and and various covers gigs around town.
Yeah, right.
And every band offered me something. I took away something from every band that I played with.
Yeah.
It was just a different situation every time I'd sort of land into that. And then I think after I'd sort of, as I was doing the Big Radio Dynamite, that's when things started to trickle in on the more higher profile sort of thing.
Yeah, right.
The first thing I sort of got offered was, I don't know if you remember the girls, the S2S girls.
Yeah,
And
Sister to Sister, I think they were.
Sister to Sister,
originally.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and we were doing like a cover thing around town, and I was pretty excited about that, because my mates playing in it. It was a great experience, and things started sort of taking over on that end. Hence why I had to sort of leave the Big Radio Dynamite thing, which was a great thing for me. I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
And then after sort of amalgamating with a lot of the players, it was a different circle of players once again. It was like more the R&B sort of side of things.
Okay.
And that's where a lot of the gigs started sort of coming in.
Yeah.
When I started playing in that circle of players. So a lot of those guys were sort of doing the profile gigs back then. And and it's inevitable if you're playing with those type of players, they're going to recommend you certain things, whatever they think suits your style, and
Sure.
and that's what happened, So it wasn't sort of rocket science; it was just being at the right place at the right time,
Yeah.
And that's how it sort of eventuated, which led to obviously the Delta gig and others,
Yeah,
time.
cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. So if we fast forward a little bit, so you're doing lots of these more high-profile tours. I think you toured with was it Roachford and Danny Hines? There's a whole bunch of names, really great names. This is sort of pre, I guess, Idol and The Voice.
Yeah. Well, the Idol thing, I sort of only done a couple of guest appearances.
Okay.
Thanks to my mate Chris Camzellis.
Yeah.
At the time, with the Danny Hines thing and all, a lot of those gigs, man. Once again, so grateful to, especially the Roachford gig.
Yeah.
And
Cool.
funny enough, I was just talking to him 2 days ago on Facebook because I was cleaning up my computer and I just came across all these random clips that someone had recorded.
Yeah.
So I just sent him a couple in the private messages and we're having a bit of a laugh and that, which was awesome. He's just a legend. That still goes down as one of the most enjoyable gigs that I've done. Because it was more a jam, his gig, and he was like just sort of going. It was like a 4-piece only. He'd sort of jump on his keys every now and then, but the back line, the guitar, bass, and drums were sort of holding it, and then he'd jump on his keys and sing most of the time, obviously. But he was so encouraging and always just like all about just bringing something to the table, you know. So it wasn't just play the parts and play them, you know, verbatim off the record. He was just like, no, bring your own flavour, which taught me a lot, you know. I was quite nervous, you know, about the gig because I was sort of asked. I had 2 days to learn the songs.
Wow.
His guitarist couldn't get his visa in time to come over, so it was like literally last minute. And
because a lot of those guitar parts were quite distinctive, weren't they? They were quite really the signatures of those songs.
Signature stuff.
Yeah.
You know, and lucky enough, he had he'd sent through live recordings of the way they did them with his guitarist in London and stuff in England, and they were really stripped back, you know, but the parts are still there and stuff. And I didn't want to chart anything out. I just memorized everything. So literally, man, for 2 days, 2 nights, I didn't sleep. I was just like, I'm going to nail this gig. And it was quite nerve-wracking for me because I remember in the rehearsal once we started, I thought, oh, man, is this really happening? And he was so genuine and accommodating and just really warming, you know. So he was like, man, I know you've only had 2 days and I'm not expecting anything, you know, I'm just grateful that you could help me out, you know. I was like, thank you, you know. So it was good, man. So we did the rehearsal and he was pretty happy. So I ended up doing 2 runs with him. He came out, then about a couple of years later he came out again and we did another run, which was awesome. So that was quite enjoyable, I should think. Yeah.
Cool. So, and then in was it 2012 you landed the job for The Voice, the Australian version of The Voice?
Yes. That was you know, coming off sort of doing a lot of the profile stuff, especially a lot of the contestants that came off Idol.
Yeah, right.
I worked with pretty much most of the Idol contestants.
Yeah. So it's like
Paulini, everybody that was on at the time, like Casey, Anthony Kalia, did a bit of stuff with Guy when we were doing like the Young Divas. So once I sort of joined that Young Divas thing, obviously they had like Ricky Lee in there, Kate Rouge, you know, Emily, Paulini, and that's how I met all the girls there, and Jess Malboy, that came in later on. When the Divas thing split up, everyone started doing their own solo career. So obviously the first people they're going to call is the people they're comfortable with, which was, you know, the band from the Divas. Did a lot of acoustic stuff with all of them, which was awesome, you know. But all those guys, you know, a lot of the contestants from the Idol era, and then, you know, I got the opportunity a couple of times to play with Chris on Idol, and of course that was a big rock, you know, group sort of night. So, you know, having three guitarists on the night, you know, working with Rex was
Rex Go, yep, great.
With Rex and Chris, like Rex is just a freak and Chris is just a monster.
Fantastic.
So, you know, and I was really close. Chris gave me the opportunity to do like the full promo run with Anthony Kalia at the time, and and I'd known Chris, man. I've known Chris from the early '90s. You know, from when they had those Long Live the Lead break competitions and stuff like that. That's where I met Chris.
Yeah.
You know, and we always laugh about it. And I keep saying, every time he got up there, I was just like, what am I doing here? You know, because you just blow everyone off the stage. You know, and he'd always get to the grand final, but you know, and we used to have these long chats on The Voice. You know, when because there's a lot of downtime in between songs, we just sit there laughing about, you know, the old days how he used to come over and we used to jam, and you know, Chris is just a genuine, just a top bloke with just amazing guitar skills, you know.
Yeah.
And he influenced me a lot, you know. He was a massive influence on me back in the days because he was doing a lot of covers gigs back in those days.
Okay, yeah.
And I'd go and see him play at I don't know if you remember that place called the Sus Club out at Sutherland.
Oh yeah.
They used to have sort of bands on the Friday and the Saturday, and I was playing with Hugh at the time. And then we go on, we do like a support for his covers band, and it was really, really great time, you know, for bands. And I just sit there watching him, just mouth hitting the floor, you know, and I thought, man, I want to play like this guy, you know. He's just got his sound down. And then sure enough, you know, like years went by, and then I'd see Chris on TV, and then, you know, we'd always bump into each other, and I was like, man, this guy's he's killing it, you know. And so that inspired me a lot, man. So I thought, you know what, man, you know, he's put his head down, and so that's what I'm going to do. You know, I'm going to put my head down. I'm going to sort of work on it and sort of get myself into that thing. So, you know, many years later, you know, I get a call from Chris, and it's like, hey, man, would you be interested in doing the Anthony Clear run? I was like, man, that'd be great. And we became very close on that run. That lasted a while, you know, because Anthony was quite huge at the time.
Yeah, yeah.
And which led to, you know, putting me on Idol, and that was nerve-wracking. I remember doing the shows, because the shows are so full on, man.
Yeah.
Because they were just like big super group nights. So it was all like Queen, you know, 3-part harmonies, and you know,
awesome.
The Silverchair songs. It was just all guitar parts, you know. So it was quite a challenging thing. It was the first time I'd done something to that extent, you know, with charts, and that was freaking me out.
Yeah.
And you know, something like that should give you, you know, you sort of walk away and sort of, you know, by theory, you walk away going, man, that was awesome. But man, I walked away going, I never want to do that again. You know, and that's how I left it, man. So I conditioned myself to sort of think that way.
Yeah.
So when the voice opportunity came up, you know, Scott Applin, who is a, you know, close friend of mine, we had done a lot of stuff, you know, from the Idol thing with the Young Divas and that, and I've known Scotty for years, you know, so we've done a lot of touring together.
Yeah.
And he got the offer, you know, to be the musical director for the show.
Yeah. Is he the keys player?
And he's the keys player.
Okay.
We've got 2 keys players on there. We've got Adam Stoker, who does all the programming for the show and does all the Paddy sort of stuff, you know, organ.
Yeah.
You know, Scotty sort of takes care of piano stuff, and if there's anything sort of jazzy, you know, Adam sort of does the jazzy sort of stuff, and Scott does pretty much everything else, you know.
Okay.
Scotty, you know, obviously does all the arrangements for the show, does all the cuts, you know, works at the keys for the singers. A lot of work. He's got a lot on his plate, man.
I was going to say that looks like a huge job, like, because all your songs get cut down, but you've still got to learn them. So it's not like you're learning less songs.
Well, no, that's the thing. Well, the thing is too, you know, like, you know, when he got offered to do it, the musical director, I'd start watching the American voice show, not knowing that, you know, the Australians were going to pick up on the show. So I was looking at, man, how do these guys do that many songs? You know, I was freaking out watching them, you know. And then sure enough, Scotty rings me up. He's like, look, mate, I've been offered the gig. He goes, it's not out in the media, so we're going to keep it hush hush. But you know, I really want you to jump on board with it. Because we've done a lot of studio stuff. I've done a lot of studio stuff with Scotty as well, apart from the touring. And he was just like, you know, I'd love you to do it. And I was like, oh man, all that was going in my head was the Idol days. You know, those gigs that I did with the Idol band. I was just freaking out. I was just like, you know what, dude, I don't think I could do it. You know, I don't want to do it. You're better off getting someone else. And he was like, really? You know, like, and I was like, yeah, man, get someone else to do it. Yeah, I knocked it back, and then by the end of the conversation, he convinced me. And then, you know, 3 days later, I'd ring him up going, look, you know what, man, no, I'm not going to do it. And this went on, I'm not kidding, it went on for about 3 months.
Really?
You know?
Full on.
Of just phone calls of just like, man, I can't do it, you know, freaking me out. And then he's like,
wow, all
right, man, you know, and then it got to the crunch, and he was like, look, dude, you got to make a decision. I need to know today, otherwise I'm going to. And I said, look, you know what, just get someone else.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, are you sure? You know, and I was like, yeah, man, positive, just get someone else to do it. I'm not the guy for it. And then by the end of the conversation, he convinced me, you know, which I'm grateful.
Wow, yeah.
For. Yeah. He convinced me, and he was like, well, that's it, man, I'm locking it in, you're in now. I was like, oh, all right, dude, yeah, I'm doing it, that's it. And then, mate, I tell you, I didn't sleep because for the time, I think it was in October, November. I didn't sleep, mate. I didn't sleep for 3 months because it was just too daunting for me, you know, because I didn't know what to expect. I'd seen the American version, the expectations. I was like, whoa, man, this is heavy, you know. So I was freaking myself out. Everyone was freaking out because we didn't know what we were getting ourselves into.
Right.
You know? But then when the songs started coming in, I was just like, what have I done? You know, this is like 145. Actually, the first year was about 150 songs, if not more.
Wow.
Yeah. And they'd given us about a month to learn them, right? So there was a bit of time to learn them. A bit of time to learn them. And it was just crazy because I had to get my sound together. It was just freaking me out, you know. So trying to learn the songs was just night and day, man. Just learning the songs. Because for me, it was all about, oh man, what if I stuff up, or what if, you know, it was just crazy time. But you know, we ended up doing it, and you know, knock on wood, it was like the band just killed it. You know, the first season, everyone was on their game, and we were pretty stoked. And then, you know, now we're into the fifth season, so it's pretty much sort of, you know, rocking up at the office and doing it now. You don't really think about it anymore. You just do it. It's like a glorified covers gig, you know.
Yeah, right.
Which it is, but you know, I'm very grateful for it, and it's been just a great 5 years, you know.
Yeah, brilliant. It's funny. Like by the time you got offered the gig, you done a lot of playing. Had you ever had any other gigs where you had sort of a crisis of confidence, like you doubted whether you could pull off gigs?
Like every time.
I think.
Look, no matter how many times you sort of get offered a gig, I think the key is once. I think it's that acceptance thing. I think once you sort of realise that people are respecting you and accepting, and you know, they know you're reliable. When you've done so many gigs at that point where they know what you're capable of, and you've got nothing to prove.
Yeah, right.
I think that's when the pressure just goes straight off your shoulders.
Okay.
Like you're just like, well, this is what I do, you know, and you're asking me now, so you know what I do, so there's no expectation. So the only expectation is obviously just nailing it, you know, which I'm comfortable doing.
Sure.
But I think up until that point, it was like any gig I would get, even if it was a covers gig, whatever, I would always like, oh man, confidence, you know, no confidence whatsoever.
Okay.
You know, it was just weird. But once I get on there and do it, it was like I felt like it was all right, you know, like there's nothing to worry about. But it's just the lead up, you know, the anxiety leading up to it and all that. But you know, doing the stuff like with Delta like that's nothing. That's like peanuts. Okay. Because one, she's so easy, like in the sense, like she just respects anything I put to the table. Mm-hmm. She appreciates all that stuff. She doesn't. That's what she wants. She wants you to bring stuff to the table. So you're there because of what she thinks she can bring to the table. And she's not about, I want you to play it this way or play it that way.
Okay.
So everything we do acoustically, because that's the majority of the stuff I do with her is acoustically.
Okay, yeah.
She'll just say, oh, can we do this song? And yeah, sure, I'll do an arrangement. She goes, I love it. Yeah, let's do it, you know. And that's it. Cool. You know, so there's nothing there. And even, you know, there's times where, you know, you'll slip or you'll stuff up on that. We just have a laugh, you know, because she's more of a mate than, I feel like she's more a mate than it is sort of playing for a boss, you know what I mean?
Okay, yeah,
like
cool.
There is none of that. There's none of that sort of, what did you do there? Or probably not that, man.
Uh-huh. Yeah, cool. So your career, I mean, even before The Voice, like your career, it looked like you're getting lots of work. You're doing. Yeah. You've been playing on quite a few sessions, I think, up to that stage. But it seems to have opened up heaps of stuff. So, for example, so can you explain when the artists on The Voice, when they start releasing singles, like during the season, are they like the live versions, or are you guys going back into the studio and recutting those to release them?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so basically what we're giving is the cut version, which is about 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes by the time we get to the live.
Yeah.
So we learn that particular version, and then the working week starts on the Monday with the live show, and the Tuesday, Wednesday is the mentoring and the reality side of things.
Okay.
We start at about 8 a.m. We go through to about 5:30 p.m.
So that mentoring time, is that just run for you guys in the band? Is that like running rehearsals?
It's running, on camera. So the coaches come in and they coach the vocalist, and we sit there, and if there's any changes, it's all done on camera.
Oh, okay.
So we just sort of play, So then when we finish that at 5:30, then we go straight to 301 Studios. Yep. And we record the full-length version of what we mentored that day. So if there's key changes or rearrangement of the actual song, we do that arrangement, but in full length. Recorded in studio, live band.
Do you have much time? Like, have you got time for overdubs or fixing up stuff? Or it seems like you've got a lot of stuff to get through.
Yeah, okay. So in the earlier times, like for example, there's how many get through? I think it's 16 contestants that get through. So the Tuesday and the Wednesday, so it's divided into 2 days. So we get eight songs per day.
Wow.
So we go in there. We start about 7 p.m.
Yep.
And we've got to record the 8 songs.
Wow.
Regardless of how long it takes.
That's nuts. That is nuts.
Yeah. Sometimes, man, we depends how tired we are, how difficult the songs are. Man, we've done stuff. We've done 8 songs like in a couple of hours, in a few hours at the most. We've done 8 songs where it's taken us. We've gone through to like 3 a.m. So it depends on the song as well,
sure,
and the arrangement, and coming up with a new arrangement for the artist. So that sometimes we'll leave the mentor in, and they'll go. It'll be just like acoustic guitar, and you guys figure it out. So we've got to literally reproduce something that we think the coaches are wanting, So we go in the studio, we're wrecking our breath, so we're also producing it as well, as a band. So, which takes up a lot of the time there. But minimal overdubs. If there's, for example, between the guitar chairs, I'll take all the electric sort of stuff, and the other guitarists will take the mainly the acoustic stuff. So unless it's like a big electric thing, if we're both playing electrics, then obviously we do the parts and we just put them down. But if he's playing the acoustic and it's an intricate part, he'll concentrate on that. And then I'll just learn all the electric parts, and then I'll overdub. I'll do my first take through, and then I'll overdub, second pass or third pass if they require it. Yeah. And if there's any little mistakes in there, if there's a bar or two that you've stuffed up in the take, literally everyone finishes their take. Everyone will say, "Here, how'd you go?" Your drummer will say, "Wazza, he's normally pretty much first take."
Yeah.
Nick Sinclair, pretty much solid as well. Very rare that these guys stuff up. They do, but it's very rare. Guitarists always doing overdubs, But it's very minimal sort of stuff. A bar here, or you slip a chord, or
Sure.
And that's it, man. But it's very quick. They roll really quick. You just got to do it, and that's it. And just change your sounds and stuff like that, which is great. And I learned. I mean, you can imagine, man. 5 years of doing it, you learn so much. You learn to be pretty quick at it. Just only because you've got no choice.
Yeah.
You have to
sink or swim.
Sink or swim, exactly.
So there you have it. That's the end of part 1 of our interview with Michael Dolce, and the end of our first episode of the Guitar Speak podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. Remember, you can subscribe to us on the iTunes podcast feed. You can download us on SoundCloud, Guitar Speak Podcast. You can look us up on Facebook, say hi, have a chat, ask a question, give a suggestion. We're on Facebook, Guitar Speak Podcast, or by email, guitarspeakpodcast@gmail.com. Now, next episode, we continue our conversation with Michael Dolce. We talk about how he developed his technique, how he expanded his harmonic vocabulary, how he ended up having a signature Charles Cillier guitar, which is just a beautiful instrument. Talk about his masterclasses that he takes around Australia, and we talk about how he produced his first solo album, Everything Till Now. You're listening to a little bit of that now. This is a track called Why Not? Okay, see you next time.